Hello, I'm Brian Bacchus, and welcome to AltadenaTalks Technology. The reason why I said that is because every time we do this, I have to go over to the Instagrams. Don't forget to go to your Instagram, Jamal, and start it.
I already did it.
Yeah, because I got to do 2 of them. It takes forever. Sometimes by the time we start, it hasn't popped up yet. So I'm talking to you blindly because I can't see you until we come back. So once again, I'm Brian Bacchus.
I'm Jamal Smith. I'm Jamal Smith. That is...
Hi, y'all. It's Tony.
There we go. This is Tony Talks.
This is Tony Talks Tuesday. Hey, hey, hey.
What episode are we? 110?
110.
Yikes.
Yeah, 110 to the end.
Oh, 110 today?
Isn't that car club too?
That was Stacey Ogman's Motorcycle Club.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So, yeah, good morning, everyone. Normally, we have a special guest on. We were scheduled to have Kevin Robertson on, an LA County firefighter who's retired, who was going to just talk to us about what his perspective was, meaning in regards to the response to the fire. Hey, Tracy, good morning. But he had some technical difficulties, and I don't know. He could pop in if he gets that all situated. But if not, we decided we just gonna move forward.
Keep the road on the show.
Hit the road, Jack. Yeah, that we were just gonna, do what we gotta do and move forward with the show and not keep you all waiting. And so I told the guys, I said, then why don't we just have some regular talking? And one of the topics that I think would be really, really good for us to talk about is what went on at, I think, 9 or 9:30 this morning. I didn't log into it because I was busy working. But the LA County Board of Supervisors is meeting again this morning. We know that 2 weeks ago, our supervisor, Catherine Barger, put forth the motion to defer the permit fees until later, meaning like on the back end. And a lot of Altadenians were like, that's not good, because even if you defer them instead of waiving them, we still got to pay them. And some is like $40,000, right? By the time you do plan check, they check it, they come back, you resubmit, just all this stuff. And all the different plans or all the different permit fees are up to 40 grand. And so today she decided to put forth a motion to waive the permit fees. And if by chance you have already paid permitting fees, you will get that refunded back to you. So that's a motion that was happening today. You might want to scroll down a little bit, Jamal, because it's up in the banner part, the part you have highlighted. Down or scroll up. I'm sorry. Yeah. So this is the motion that they're going to talk about today on the agenda. It usually starts like either 9 or 9:30 in the morning. I've been on several of the calls, and but it is item 51B on the agenda, and it would simply immediately defer them, but make it so that they waive them all together. That's what the real, I don't want to say hope, but the real gist of this is to waive them all together. But I think there's a process where they have to do the waiver part first so people can get these permits done and go through whatever it takes, not just for the motion, but to be voted on, to make it, like into, I don't want to say into law, but whatever it is that they do, have it fully voted on, ratified. That's where my brain was. Have it ratified so that happens, but also to refund permit fees for those that have already paid them. So we're just going to chat amongst ourselves and anyone in the chat that wants to talk to us about this. But I think that this is a really good thing because it's so needed. Because there are so many that are uninsured or underinsured, and being saddled with another $40,000 in permit fees is utterly ridiculous. And everybody keeps comparing Palisades to Altadena and saying Palisades is also part of LA County. And one of the things I've said on the Facebook groups or talked to people said, yes, it is. However, they are part of the city of LA, right? Just like Pasadena, I saw something in the Star News yesterday that now Pasadena is thinking about waiving the fees. And that is, here's Kevin, hold on. And that is also separate. Hey, Kevin.
Please stand by. This is our guest that we were supposed to have on the show. Having some technical difficulties, but it looks like he may be going ahead and stepping up.
I think he's gonna figure it out. I know. I believe he can do it.
I believe he can do it. Woo! I believe.
Right, but to Tony's point, yeah, it'd be fabulous if they actually did waive the fees. The comparison between the other locations is going to continue, but we know what Altadena is. You know, it's that unique unincorporated area that's so special and near and dear to our hearts. But you know, there are several people who have actually already paid some of the permit fees. So if they're able to get that passed, where they can get it refunded, amazing. Deferment, by, you know, if nothing else, that'll be really cool too. But again, for those who already paid, if they can get that refunded for at least a short term, that'd be great. Morning, Marcus.
Well, it's kind of similar to when they were paying the assessor fees and they gave them a waiver, not a waiver, but they refunded the money.
Yeah.
Even if you just paid. So that kind of gave people a little bit of a cushion, because they probably weren't expecting their house to burn down, but they didn't want to not pay their property taxes.
Yeah, exactly. And the beauty of it, though, is should they make this decision, and it's good that they're doing it early in the process. Oh, there he is. He actually made it on. Because they're doing it early, when that influx of people who need to get the permits pops up, you know, because there's going to be an increase in volume, then it'll already be established and they'll be okay. You know what I mean? So that'll be a good thing.
Okay, so we're switching gears, and
we'll go ahead and try to.
You look like where's you're too low, Kevin. You look like where's Waldo.
Kevin, you gotta lower the camera.
No, hold on a second, guys.
Kevin, either lower the camera.
Hold on, guys. I put him on mute just because I know his wife was talking to him and all kind of stuff. Kev, bring your there
we go.
Oh, you're talking about this guy right here? This guy?
Do you know Kev? Now you wonder.
Of course I know.
What's up, B?
We were all behind together.
That's
okay,
right.
Well, I don't know why you were acting like you didn't know. I kept saying
no, because I said
you know too many people.
I said, do you have a picture of him? He's like, no, I don't got a picture of him. So
and I asked him, and he was like, nope. I was like, I could have gone on his Facebook, but not a big deal. Anywho,
we invited Kev to the cookout called Ditch Day.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Oh yeah.
You remember that, Kev, at the beach?
We've had those discussions.
Yeah.
It was just this last Friday too.
Yeah, I didn't.
That was the latest.
Yeah, I didn't go.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear
you.
But
yeah, you just look like you're coming from way up here.
You look like this. Look at me.
Right.
Like
we're all gonna match Kevin.
Right.
This guy.
He gonna up his seat, his chair. There it is. That's better.
Or just.
All right. Yeah. Here we go.
There. No, that's perfect, Kev.
Okay, there you go.
Yep, that's perfect.
Bada boom, bada bing.
So everyone, this is Kevin Robertson, who I said was gonna come on and maybe not, but now he did. So super excited about that. Good morning, Marcus. Good morning, Terry. So Kevin Robertson and I have talked a lot since the fires. We showed up together at the Rose Bowl and we're in line talking. And I know that Kevin and Shamika, they lost 2 houses that they have. And so I was like, you know what? He would be a good person to come on because he's also a retired LA County firefighter. And we've heard so much about what happened, the response that was sent to Altadena, we hear a lot about blame, whose fault this is. And I place more blame on, this is me personally, Kev, so hold up on me, but I place more blame on Edison because that power pole that arced that should have been dismantled and taken down in 1971 was still there, right? Kev, being a retired firefighter, is like, yeah, but the firefighters were at fault too. I don't place blame on the firefighters or the sheriffs because I think that this was a perfect storm with the winds, that power pole, all kinds of our dryness, which we have, that I don't know that even if they would have sent everybody in LA County to us, which they couldn't have because there were fires in Pasadena, Sierra Madre, and Palisades, that we could have been saved. Maybe not the entire or 90% of the town wiped out, but I don't think that it would have made a whole lot of difference because you couldn't get aircraft up, you couldn't get helicopters up to drop water, things like that. So Kevin and I have had this discussion, and he's like, from the perspective of a firefighter, he sees it a little differently, obviously, right? So I invited him on, and we're going to talk about that today. So Kev,
take it away.
Hey, huh?
yeah,
Well,
tell me how you thought. You know what we've talked about, but,
yeah, no,
but let's hear it from you.
Well, I don't know where to start this at, but what really is, we lost a city, and people want to blame Edison. You know, now it's a fire that started, and they say it's a perfect storm. Well, you allow it to become a perfect storm. You could have did a lot of things to prevent that from happening. You know, when you lose the whole city, somebody has to be accountable because, you know, the reason why I don't entirely blame Edison, I blame Edison. They're at fault for starting the fire. If they say they started the fire, because they started the fire, but it's the job. There's a duty to be done, and that duty wasn't done to prevent that fire from extending to where it left, where it is today, a disaster. You know, you lost a whole entire city,
Town.
and a town, and you don't lose a town, you don't lose a city when you have a fire department, you know, or a police department. You shouldn't lose a city when you have a fire department. Now I can see if you didn't have a fire department, but you had one, and they didn't do their job, and the fire department should be accountable, you know, from before the fire, during the fire, and after. You guys haven't heard anything from your local government who support the city. You haven't heard anything from them because people are so focused on Edison. You know, Edison is, you know, they might throw the case out of the, in June 30th, everybody's going to see something happen. Edison is going to state their facts and findings that the reason why they didn't start the fire. And you have all the agencies that's representing the community, from your lawyers to people who's representing themselves to the fire department to your local government is going to be at this hearing, because this is what Edison on June 30th is going to state that what happened. Now, this might be thrown out of court because if they say facts that, and they state that there was the due process that wasn't handled right, the judge can say, hey, look, well, Edison's not at fault. So what's the next step? Where do your fire department come in? Because your fire department did some things that you can't sue a fire department, you can't sue the police department. It's, you know, those are things. But when they do things that is not right based on their policies and their procedures, then you can't. You got a different ball game. And they didn't do what was right for their policies and procedures. And then So wait. So what is it that they didn't do? Because you said their policy and procedure, but obviously we don't know what that is, right? Well, you know, at first, their SOPs were standards of, procedures or standards of operations. They didn't have enough personnel on this fire. Now, every fire department, every Altadena after Pasadena, know when these wind-driven type of days we have, we know we're about to lose trees and power lines down. But the fire department is an emergency entity within the city that has the access to have everything shut down. They could have called Edison during this windstorm, and once you have power down and you're just dealing with that without the fire, you have the responsibility as that supervisor or that battalion chief to shut down the power. Call Edison. They have that access to do it right then. They didn't. We still have power in our community. This is before the fire. So if they would have did that, then maybe the fire would have started somewhere else. Because Edison said they didn't start the fire, and so they did not call. We have access always to fire. I mean, to Edison, to the gas company, to any entity within where we need to shut down. We have that access to shut it down right away.
So wait. So how do you know for a fact that they didn't make that call? We can all assume,
Well,
but
because
we
we don't
know
have
for a
power.
fact?
We all still have power. We all still have power after the
But
fire.
that doesn't mean they didn't make that call.
Well,
What if they did make the call and Edison decided they were going to wait a little while?
Well, so that's Edison can't. Edison can't.
Oh,
They can't.
okay.
When the fire
So if
department-
the fire chief calls and says, shut the power off, according to whatever the jurisdictional rules, policies, SOPs, whatever, they have to, when that fire chief calls, they have to then shut it down?
Well, see, that's the thing. So this is the thing. I'm just throwing things out there, but we have not yet heard an investigation or incident report from the fire department, which you're going to hear on June 30th. Or you haven't heard called fact finding, what they found out and what happened in their due process. We haven't heard all that yet. But these are the things that the community needs to be aware of. That, hey, look, why the fire department didn't call to shut down the power, because we would have the power shut down during an emergency situation. And they didn't have the proper manpower up there. And I know a lot of people up there saw just one fire engine apparatus up there, during the fire, or just didn't have enough resource up there. The accountability, you have to make someone accountable. You have to make somebody accountable for this fire. Edison is the one who started, but this fire shouldn't have went this far. Because your water domestic line system went down. You have 3 services up there. You don't know which system went down. All this stuff that people need to start addressing and looking at. I've been a fireman. I was a fireman for 33 years, and I look at this stuff, and I'm like, my boys, they're gonna do their job but they didn't have the proper resource. Their manager let them down. They didn't have the proper resource.
So how many resources do you think were needed? Because my understanding is, and you and I talked about this, so I want you to explain about that agreement between cities, the county, all of these ones that have it, and we, as the town of Altadena, the county didn't have that agreement, and then a lot of our resources were dispatched to Palisades, correct?
Well, we don't know that yet. That's what I'm saying. So that's what we're going to tell you everything, because every apparatus, every person on that fire engine has a GPS system. And I'm just saying, time management, give me a GPS on where they was at that time of the initial start of that fire. Give me Kevin, a GPS on it.
Is it more of a matter of the timing when it comes to the resources? Because it seems to me, I'm not a firefighter, but it just seems logical that as soon as we were aware that a fire started, if we could have aggressively had the resources go there, we might have been able to reduce the damage and potentially save the vast majority of the town. Is that the case?
That's part of
because that's part of what you got to figure out.
The LA County handles non-incorporated cities that provide their own service. So when you look at all the cities that they're dealing with LA County, they're scattered all around. But the surrounding cities they have their own charter, their own local fire department. And what's going to happen is, like Pasadena, all those other fire departments, they all have an automatic aid within each other. Meaning that when it's about fire in Pasadena, then Pasadena's getting those other 16 local states automatically coming. Versus with LA County, they'll call you when they need you. You know what I mean? So this is where the problem came with LA County. Now, LA County is calling their resource within their own government, their own fire department, which is already scattered around. You got Rosemead, La Cañada, La Crescenta, DeWardy, El Monte, and they only bring in one apparatus. That's only one resource from each city, And so that, now they're saying this was the perfect storm, and you have wind, and you have a fire. They're too far away, the resource. So that was a delay in resource. This fire is ripping. You guys saw when it started and how big it got so fast. Now you need a resource right away. You didn't see Pasadena burn down. They lost some homes, but they didn't burn down because that resource was already kicking in. Because they had 16 cities already responding to Pasadena, and the bad thing was this.
But you said that's an agreement that those 16 cities have. We, as the county and an unincorporated town, don't have that agreement, what you told me on the phone.
Well, we don't have, so there's a different agreements where it is. There's what we call automatic aid, and we have mutual aid.
Okay.
LA County has mutual aid with most cities.
Okay.
Now, Pasadena and all the other 16, they have automatic aid, meaning they have automatic aid service, meaning that automatically you get this service.
Right.
When you need it. Okay.
Mutual aid is we have to request it.
And we have to request it. Or
if somebody says we want to come help, we can reject it, right?
it's a choice, but it doesn't work that they won't reject it, but they can. But it's just a different type of service that is an agreement within the departments.
Okay.
Like, you've ever seen that you have a call in Pasadena, but you have an LA County fire engineer because it's a non-incorporated, or vice versa. It's like, why Pasadena way up here when you got a fire station right here?
Yeah.
There's no agreement there, and so that was the problem here. There was a perfect storm because you allow it to be a perfect storm. You allow it to get this big because your resource wasn't here. And then there are things that we do, and I can't argue this because it's just a thing that firefighters does. Is that they were freelancers, like they're coming up to the city. One, mind you, they don't know the city. They don't know what they're doing. And, they've never been in the city. And then you got this fire, it's just ripping and moving fast. But then when you come up and then you pull up on a house that's fire that you wasn't assigned to, you're going to stop. And we had a lot of freelancers. So now you got to, this is an example, you got a fire company coming from El Monte, they stop. Now they're going to call dispatch and say, hey, look, we stopped at this. Can you have somebody else respond? Now it's another delay. But
so they could be there, but then not have permission to fight that fire. So they stop.
Yeah, they don't have permission, but they can ask for requests for somebody to they can reassign somebody to the assignment they already have. So which is not a bad thing, but it is what it is within the fire service. And that's the common denominator, because if you have somebody, you pulling up on something and somebody's at the top, yelling out of a window, help, you're gonna stop. And you got to go to another call. And there's another thing is, the first company on scene, this is why I said the resource was they didn't have the proper resource, because the first company was on scene was Pasadena. And that company came 5.5 miles from that initial fire. They were Fire Station 36, which is located on Fair Oaks and Hammond, across the street from Jackie Robinson Park.
There are other closer ones.
So you think about that. Yeah. When you got Fire Station 66, 12s, and 11s up there, they might have been on a service call on a call where it was power down, you have wires down or a service call. But when you got a fire started on those days, any fire company, and it's not a fault, but it's just that something that happens, any fire company is going to stop what they're doing to go respond to that fire because they know it can get out of hand.
They're on high alert, right?
Yeah, high alert. But what I've seen on this fire department is LA County is at fault because they didn't have the adequate resource up there for those first 2 days. Now they said they had 2,500 personnel up there, 253 apparatus and 33 water tenders and 33 fire crews. They had that up there, but that was after this whole thing went through.
It was too late.
It was too late. And so that's the accountability with this fire. And then you see what we lost and the fatalities we have. Our job is to protect and to serve.
Right.
We will not do that. And,
I know. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And I'm surprised that the LA County Fire Association is not jumping on this, because what this fire chief did is he put those guys he put their lives in jeopardy because they didn't have the proper resource to get up. They didn't have the manpower to do their job. And this is where I said the accountability is because we would have had automatic aid with Pasadena and Glendale, Burbank, Monrovia, Arcadia, all the surrounding areas, we would have had a more of aggressive attack on this. And then how did they approach this? Did they go incident command, meaning automatically they're setting up that, versus structural protection or a fire attack? I don't know exactly what went down, but I know the call was the wrong call. And we can't hold them liable, but you can't hold that fire chief and that person who was in command liable for it. Once we get to due process of that, because they have not said anything about what the incident itself and the we haven't no fire reports or nothing yet out. No, the cause of the fire, none of that came out. And I'm gonna tell you, June 30th, when Edison is going to prove their fact finding and everything, and that's when everything's going to come out. It's really scary for the people right now who want to blame Edison, where you should be focused on your local government, because they shut down on you. And I can tell you how they shut down. From the pre-fire planning, from the system they have set up, from your water system, from your evacuation systems, all that wasn't even there for you. 911 shut down. You couldn't even call 911. You have to call Pasadena 911 to get service. They shut down. Say we're busy. We don't have enough people to help. That right there, that is documented. That's recorded to say we don't have enough resources to help. So
but the thing is, okay,
which is unfair. Which is untrue.
I understand all of that, Kev, and I think a lot of people understand that, right? Like the internal government stuff. But as you know, governments protect themselves. We cannot sue the county for this. We cannot sue the fire department, all of that. They're insulated. So now it's sue Edison for those people that want to sue because their whole lives are gone, right? And then even the gas company, and we'll talk about that in a second, because you said no when we were talking on the phone about it, because the gas, people were going 2 and 3 days later to shut off their gas valves. And you told me people shouldn't have done it. And as a firefighter, you would have told everybody, stay out and don't do that, because if you shut it off, then it can make it worse and do like is it a backdraft or something like that?
Well, it's a real touchy, when you got flames coming out of a gas pressure pipe, and then you want to hit those flames, and that, so they have certain ways that they do it. The gas company have certain ways they have a criteria. We don't even shut it down till the gas company gets there, you know.
Yeah.
And so it's a very touchy situation when it comes to shutting down gas, you know. And you don't know how, if it's an upgrade in the system or whatever, how long the system been in. So that's why they don't want people to shut their gas down when it's a flame. They don't want to deal with it because you don't know, because it can go back, and then if it gets into those systems, your whole street's about to blow up. You know, it's many different. It can be many different scenarios, but you have to be very cautious with that. And that is all the gas, because the gas company was, you know, they didn't have enough resources to get it shut down as fast as they would like it, but they still did their job to shut it down. That's a very touchy thing. That's under pressure.
So, you know, I think my question is, just like if somebody doesn't pay their bill, your water company will turn you off from their system. The electric company will turn you off. The gas company will turn you off if you're delinquent, don't pay your bill or whatever, right? So to me, it's mind-boggling to me that none of them thought, for this whole town, especially if it started on the east, let's shut down the west or whatever. Let's shut off the power. Let's shut off the gas. Let's shut off the water. Not the water, because hydrants needed it and hydrants were empty. But those two, to me, it's like, you have the power to turn anybody's off at any time. Why couldn't you just, and I know it's probably bigger than flipping a switch, but I'm going to say flip a switch, turn it off, right? Because that would have prevented some of it. If it's the gas and it's on the west side and it hasn't reached there yet, turn the gas off, turn the power off.
Well, we do teach that in the fire service. When you have a fire, if you leave in your house, there's an earthquake, shut your gas off, shut your power off, and all that. We do teach that.
I'm talking about the companies, Edison and the gas company.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So why would they want to shut down the whole entire city when the whole entire city is ain't affected at that time? You know what I mean? So if you leave in your home and you know you have a situation, these are the pre-safety things that we recommend, you to do, and that it goes from home to home, and but I don't think I just think people need to really start focusing on you lost your community, and you have to focus on it, because at the end of the day, Edison's going to pay whatever they pay. But then and that's every home is dealing with their own personal thing. Now you put your own, now you got to go out to the street. Now that's where the government comes in. What about all those repairs? What about everything that needs to be fixed? But they're telling you got to do this. They have to be accountable because they allowed this fire to get this far. Edison started the fire. But where's your local government? Why they didn't stop this fire? Cal, and then here it is, you got Cal Fire sitting there. They didn't put the new laws out with fire zones. Nobody said anything about that. What that's going to create? And this is something I think is going to happen in 2 years after this all go down. Everything is settled down. Your insurance company is going to have the right to drop you because they done made it more extreme. But because they didn't do their job. Again, when the brush is burning, what they allow, and this is what we used to call it. We used to call it controlled burning. We're burning all the brush. But they don't call it that anymore because it might get out of hand. Every time you get a little fire, you notice that they let the fire, the mountains burn because that's how they burn it off. And then when it gets to structures, and that's when your local government, your local fire department comes to place. We protect structures, but then it's out of hand and you lose all these homes. We are losing communities now because we are not making our local governments accountable.
Kevin, I have a quick question. I know you were talking resources and how Altadena was not prepared and didn't have enough resources. I'm curious, how much of a factor was the Palisades fire, in terms of pulling resources away from Eaton fire, given the fact that it started so much, so much later? I mean, was that a big draw of all the resources that would have possibly been there already had it only been the Eaton fire?
Well, you had two fires. It's hard to tell because there's just two different areas, and you have when you look at, Palisades got the Torrens. They have the surrounding communities around them. They got they have their problems, but when this is why their mayor. What she did, she didn't terminate that fire chief, but she demoted her because she didn't want to make that a big thing. But she knows that fire chief should be fired. But she demoted her so they can focus on the things that redo Palisades. Now, this is the same thing here because she's making the local government accountable. We have to make them accountable because if you don't make them accountable, then you and I getting the real perks of the things that you need to rebuild your city.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the thing that people don't understand. This fire chief, the way they set up stuff, should be accountable. The water department should be accountable. We have 3 services up there. And then we don't know which one did what. We don't know nothing. Everybody just want to rebuild. Do that. But now you got to deal with your community because, it is bad up there. And it's like your service let you down. The fire department did not do their job because they didn't have the resource. And then, when you're on a fire engine and you only got yourself up there on one block, you can't say once you got multiple homes burning, but it's hard to do that. But let me get back to it where, when I'm saying pre-fire planning, every February the LA County does their hydrant maintenance. So they test the hydrants within the Altadena. So they making sure those hydrants work. Okay. That's what their pre-fire, they do their brush surveys. I mean that they're supposed to go door to door and evaluate your home and tell you what your brush clearances are. But they didn't. They drive-bys. So so those are the pre-fire plan stuff, sort of things that they have. And then they have options where you can set up for the system to act, to notify you when there is situations. Right. But LA County, we need to understand what happened here. In your 911 system, you call, it shut down on you. That 911 system shut down on you. Now here we got this fire, and you don't have the right resource up here. You calling everybody, but you're not getting everybody at the right time. And all these people that's coming into our community doesn't know our community. Right. Now, how they have it set up in LA County, I can tell you right now, they have half of their personnel in LA County is always an overtime person, meaning that they're just working overtime that day. So they don't know the community anyway. Mm-hmm. So these are the things, but those are not, you can't blame them for stuff like this. But what I'm saying is when we blame for a fault because the negligence that they have with the personnel, they didn't have the proper resource there at the time that we needed it.
So let me ask, if you don't mind, let me ask my question again, just in a slightly different way. Were some of the resources that should have been available for Eaton in Palisades?
No.
Yeah, they said that there were.
Well, because again, like I said, I was trying to tell you, that LA County, they handle the non-incorporated areas. So, but you have so you have 2 different. I don't know how their grid, how they have their system.
So it's possible. I mean, you don't have to know.
It should be possible, but now you got to draw your resources. I don't know where Altadena we falling on. We falling on the east side of county, or we falling on the west side. Like west side can be Lancaster, Palmdale, all them. East side we can be Montclair and everybody else. Where are they drawing their resource for us? You see what I'm saying? So they have a broad resource, but then again, you got to understand. You guys talking about it's a perfect storm. You don't that right there. But their problem is they're mutual aid and they're automatic. And if they had automatic aid with surrounding cities, they wouldn't have this delay. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm saying. You're talking about that they draw from Palisades. I don't know the line where they draw where the resource is coming from. That's why if I get the incident report, I can really break it down. But I don't know where if it came from the east side of the county or the west side.
So maybe we should wait until after the 30th or when these reports come out, have you come back on and talk about some of that, because I'm gonna play devil's advocate real quick. Sierra Madre is a fully incorporated city. They have their own fire department. They had, or they contract with the county, whatever it is, but they had 10 homes burn over there, right? So they had to have their personnel there. Pasadena lost 100 or about that homes, and their fire departments were dedicated to go and fight theirs. So if both those cities that are on the sides of us, below us and on one side, have their resources dedicated to what's happening in their cities, they, even if we had automatic aid, they couldn't have come up to Altadena, which is an unincorporated town.
Well, no. I'm sorry. No. So when we talk about agreements of aid, mutual or automatic, there's contracts driven on certain situations, not just from fire, for EMS service, for hazmat service, and everything. So you automatically get this service. So when Sierra Madre burned, Sierra Madre had those 16 cities coming as well. They're in the same
mutual aid agreements.
We call it Verdugo Dispatch Center. They're all on that same dispatch center. So it's a perk for smaller community departments, because you get bigger departments coming in rolling. This is why they didn't burn, because they have everybody all the way from Burbank coming in, and Burbank is going to send 3 to 4 companies. They'll send their whole city, and then they have people coming and filling in their city to back up their city. Glendale going to send their whole city. They got 7 to 8 fire stations.
Right.
And Gamble going to send, Alhambra going to send. They're going to send their whole city. Then they got people coming in backfilling the back there. But they're sending their whole city to Pasadena and Sierra Madre and Arcadia. So this is that. But now, if we would have that there's been so many years that Pasadena was trying to get automatic aid with LA County. LA County is the biggest department in the world. They piggyback on other departments, when we do great jobs. But every time you get a fire up in Altadena, it's always going to burn down, because their SOPs are so vague, where it's like, 2 in, 2 out. Well, you got one coming in, they got to wait till a company comes from La Cañada or DeWardy to come help them. So it would be good for when you guys, when you say with a perfect storm, that means that fire is going real fast. It's coming.
So it would be good as our town rebuilds, for not only our town council, but for residents to go to the Board of Supervisors and say, look, nobody can afford for this to happen again. We need to revamp those SOPs, right, for LA County, and make sure that there is not just a mutual aid, but an automatic aid agreement in place as part of us rebuilding Altadena.
Well, you have that right to do that. We really do have that right to do that. And that's the thing that, as I'm saying, you have to make your local government accountable. Like, hey, it's not, I'm not talking about just a lawsuit. I'm just saying accountable before the act, because the action you guys taken, it doesn't work. This fire chief lost 24 people. We lost 24 families.
I know.
We lost our whole entire city. And I can take that. Once it starts on a win and you got multiple homes burning, it's about to go down if you don't have the right resource. But the resource was delayed because they were so far out.
Right.
Versus having it, you have all these cities right next door to you. And if they would have had that automatically, we get this, boom, it's coming. You know what I mean?
So something you had said at the very beginning, Kevin, is that not all the responsibility should be on Southern California Edison. Some of it should be on the fire departments and the fire preparedness. What could the fire department have done regarding that tower that had not been torn down and should have been like 50 years ago? Like what role would they have played in that?
This comes with experience, man. This, what's going on in the fire service right now is just a new group coming in. It's a new generation, and so you have to fill these spots where they're not experienced. They just take a test and they study and they promote up. They don't have that experience. And all the way from your.
This was like 50 years.
Yeah, but that tower's up there for 50 years. But was it working or? But
it was supposed to have been decommissioned.
So that's the county now is accountable for that. It's since 1971. You still let it run? What happened to you guys? But the fire department with this
the county can't be accountable for that. That's on Edison.
No, they're not. No.
It's not their pole. It's Edison's power pole.
It is their Edison, but I'm not going there. But I'm just saying. So the fire department, when you go on scene and you guys saw that, they showing you these pictures how that fire, how it arced and about it dropped. So they said they couldn't put the air service up, because air support up because it was windy. But if it was an 80 to 100 miles wind, that's knocking down trees. Y'all see what it's doing. That spark, that arc should have went somewhere else. It dropped straight. So at that time,
it wasn't that windy.
Experience.
It was that windy. If you didn't live
windy,
over there,
but if you think about it, so all I'm saying is, as a firefighter, with experience, you see, this is what experience. You look at certain things like this, like, oh, that wind wasn't blowing up to that far. But you have to understand, we are out there. I'm from Altadena. I've been living there for 25 years. I know it might be windy over here, and you know, at the same time, it's not windy over here. So you see what I'm saying? So it was a judgment call to not have the air support up. It was, and I can't argue that, you know, but it should have been a smartness. Like, okay, let the commander who's in charge of the air support make that determination, because it dropped right below. So that wasn't windy at that time. That's far as they said 80 to 100 miles winds. Okay. And so that's what people, I'm gonna tell you right now, Edison might get out of this because it's fact finding.
Well, I'm gonna tell you,
we don't know what their facts are.
We don't know what their facts are. We all just
if they talk to you, they will get out of it.
No.
Because you sound more like you defending Edison than yes, to me he does. You sound more like you defending Edison and are making a case for them and against your own company that you retired from after.
And I think he's just not. I think he's saying we don't know all the information from their standpoint. We're only getting the information that they're putting out from the people who are saying that it's their fault. They haven't had their part yet, and I think that's all he's saying.
Kev lives on Loma Alta, way on the west side, right on the other side of Fair Oaks. Kev don't live where it started. I got a sister that lived right there and saw when it started, and it was that windy. And I know other people that were over there, and it was having those high 70-mile-an-hour gusts. So for you to say, "Oh, it fell straight down because I was a firefighter for 33 years, it wasn't that windy."
That was a video.
No, that's what you said. No. That's what you said, and you said it twice because we could roll this back later. Great. But the fact is, you were not over there. Yes, you have 33 years experience, but you weren't there, and it might have arced or dropped down, but the gusts were at 70. Didn't mean the whole entire winds all the time were, right? And they said it was going to be 70 to 100 mile an hour gusts. And that's what the gusts were at different times. Anybody knows we have a windstorm, the gusts come, it's super windy, then it's not as windy or whatever. So I think that we have to say that and not say, "Oh, it wasn't that windy over there."
It was windy.
Because there were gusts.
I was in Arcadia.
Yeah, so this is the thing. Edison has not even, they haven't even threw their facts out yet. And we don't really know. But we saw the fire there, and we don't really know if it started like that. We don't know nothing. So when it comes, then we can turn. But in the meantime, I'm just saying, your local government let you down on a lot of stuff, and you people need to start addressing these things. And you know, I would have been pissed off, and many times where I don't have the proper resources to do my job as a firefighter because the resource wasn't there, and my management didn't give it to me. The management messed up. They did not. What firefighter in his right mind on that engine company with one company there can put this to protect the city? That's not the right resource. You see what I'm saying? Right. If we make them accountable, you make your whole Edison works for our government. They provide us our electricity. You make that whole government accountable. Look at your water source. It's like we have what do we have? We have
there's three different private water companies.
Lincoln Fire. We have all them. But now
there's Lincoln Water Company.
We don't know.
There's Los Flores and there's Rubio, and all three of them are private. None of them are owned by the county or the cities or anything. They're three separate, privately owned water companies that operate in Altadena.
But they're still accountable. But our county government is have a contract with service with those companies.
Right. Okay?
They all have with those companies, so they're still accountable. We don't know which which water company was accountable for not having water or the systems didn't work. You know what I mean? Who did they contract out to fix their services? We don't know any of that. You know, but we're so focused on Edison. Edison started the fire, but it didn't do this damage. What all this damage that we didn't have no water. Then they say you can't use your water for 2 to 3 days because it was contaminated. I'm like, okay, how did the water? They must have mixed the grid systems together. We don't know.
But are you aware that the city of Pasadena came to the county afterwards and offered to pump their water up, which was clean, to all the residents? Because not our whole town is burned down. We got plenty of people on the east side, plenty on the west side, and up in the meadows that weren't touched. And so they needed water, and the city of Pasadena and Mayor Victor Gordo offered, and the county said no. The water companies said no. So I get, none of us are experts at this, right? You're an expert at firefighting, but you're not an expert at what Edison did or didn't do and what the gas company did and didn't do and all that. So again, one thing I want to preface, or I did preface it, but I want to state again, this is not an expert call. This is all of us talking, because I had talked to Kevin several times, and I know he retired from there, and I asked what was his perspective. So this is his perspective, his thoughts. These are our thoughts as we're interacting, and his is also mixed with experience. However, we don't have all the reports yet, and so none of us know full facts on any of it. So I just want to say that for anybody watching.
This is my experience is coming from where we need to make sure that their SOPs and their standards of operation
be better.
Was in place at the time.
Yeah.
Did they do that? Did they go against those guidelines? And that's where they're at fault, and that's where the lawsuits can come in. You know,
So you
you lost 24 people. You lost 24 families. You have to make this accountable. Once this investigation comes out, you know, it's gonna be where now you're gonna say what they are at fault. You know, because if you don't say nothing, people, you guys are losing cities now. You're not losing 100 homes because you continue to say
cities and towns. I got you.
And you know what? I go back to back with the fire department, because your job is to protect and to serve. I believe in that, and I live with that. I die with that. Any firefighter dies with that. But when it's not there, it's not adequate, be accountable for it. You know.
So Kevin, not to justify this, but do you think the vast majority of the shortfalls and the things that the resources that weren't available, everything that kind of all the things that weren't done were because nothing of this magnitude had happened before, and no one, when I say no one, I mean the people in power can go back historically and are probably thinking, you know, this isn't going to happen. Do you think that kind of, you know, it's kind of a relaxed mentality? Do you think some of that was to factor in?
No, I think it's more funding on that case, because it's happened in other communities. We've had it before it happened. So, but you have these. There is things where.
But since it wasn't in Altadena before, it's kind of my point.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, we've seen fires, and of course we see them. We all have talked about it on here and had guests. Oh yeah, the fires are here, the winds are here. Let's evacuate for a couple hours, and we're gonna come back because, you know, it might come down. But in my whole lifetime, it's never come all the way down and burnt through the.
So this is just, so when you lose a whole city like this, just to give you, I've been in this situation where you're in a storm and it's on a block, and you got all these houses burning, and you only can protect so many. But I've a resource where we have 4 other companies with us.
Sure.
So we could knock that down. But when you don't have the resource to knock down that block, and you got the winds rolling, so all that debris that's flying around, it's all kinds of debris flying around, burning. And you guys see how some houses got touched and some didn't? That's what we was dealing with now. It's no longer it came down. It created a storm where it was catching so many houses on fire, but you didn't have the proper resource to knock them down. And then that wind from all those houses catching on fire, it just scattered all over. But if you're gonna let people stay home and fight their fire, because if anything gets on your roof, you up there with a garden hose, you can put it out. But if you ain't out there to put it out, then it's going to burn and it's going to continue to burn. So that's the situation you have here. That's why everything burns.
There's no water. That's a problem
and
too.
You have no water, and so that's what I'm saying. This is important. That's what I'm saying. You have to make your community, your local government accountable. Make them.
So I hear your point. So here, to follow up with my question, but and to acknowledge what you're saying, in my personal opinion, and let me know if I'm correct. What you're saying now is, hey, after the fact, in an effort to make sure that this doesn't happen again, we need to check with our government, check them to make sure that they're prepared next time, right? Is that basically what you're saying?
Yeah, it does. It really does in the same. Yeah, it does.
But then to that point, and going back to my previous question, when you guys were talking, when you talked about how they do the fire preparedness and they go check the hydrants and this, that, and the other, I have to assume, and forgive me for assuming, because you know what they say, assuming makes an ass out of you and me, right? But it seems to me that when they're checking the pressure, they're not checking it under the circumstances of the entire town being on fire.
Right.
So how are they truly preparing?
So
how would they truly be prepared for that kind of situation?
remember, this is 911. Remember, it's 911, and 911 has the ability to, is when they have that low water pressure, and you work, and so they have the ability to call that water company to pump up the pressure in the grid system. And
911 does.
Yeah. So every fire department has that they call their dispatch. Hey, look, we need the pressure pumped up, and that's when the fires come. Now we need to understand, when did they establish the incident command? When the unified command, meaning that when they say unified command, meaning all agencies from water, gas, every agency that you can think of is in this unified, and then they have somebody that they're at that incident command center that can control whatever needs to be controlled. We don't know. That's what I'm saying. We don't know when did they ask for requests, because the fire department has radios where they can say, hey, look, we need to, the hydrants are low. We need them. We need the pressure up.
And they can pressure up even under the circumstances of Altadena, where there are 3 private water companies.
That's what I'm saying. That we have to make them accountable for
so
action.
We don't know.
That's what I'm saying. So when I say account, we have to make them accountable for action that was taken. Mm-hmm. And so when everybody's complaining about the water, give me some. Why was it this way? The fire department. Why wasn't enough fire people up there? Your gas. Why they wasn't there? You have to make them accountable, because they failed us. And it shows,
from your experience and your knowledge, they could have increased the water pressure.
Of course, yes.
And including that, they could have brought more water. Yeah. Well, maybe you connect them from Pasadena.
I don't know how the grid systems are. So you have your domestic lines, and you have your private lines, and you have your hydrant system, the emergency with your hydrant system. Okay. And for the hydrant, they can, they
definitely can, but the private stuff maybe.
Yeah, and throughout the city, you don't know how it's connected, but you have 3 companies up there. Now, how do they work together?
That's the question.
So what system went down? What system went down? What system was contaminated? What system, had the adequate water? And who's servicing? I know City of Pasadena Fire has a contract with Lincoln, but I don't know if they have it with the other 2. You know what I mean? To service their hydrants. But the fire department has to have the ability to go test them themselves. And if it's you in your district, that is your job as a fire supervisor to test and make sure your stuff is working in your community. But that fact finding, I know they didn't. Not in my area, because the way that they have it set up for the fire department in Altadena, they have a lot of people coming in, filling in positions. They're just there for that day. You know what I mean? They're just there for that day. They might not do it. You might see them at the gym all the time because they're getting their work on. They don't know that community. And that's the disadvantage of having a LA County Fire Department.
So Kevin, question, because I know you were stationed up in Linda Vista.
Well, yeah, I'm Pasadena, first of all. I'm Pasadena, LA County.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought you were always LA County. Okay, so you were up at Linda Vista, and that was, if anything in Altadena happened, you guys wouldn't have automatically done anything because there's no mutual aid. There's no automatic aid. It would have been only on the request of LA saying, with the mutual aid contract, we want you guys to come and help.
Right. Yeah. Give you an example. So if Sarah Mondrick would have had a fire call, automatically the resources, their dispatch would have called every resource around them to come help.
So how often does that really happen?
Every day.
Does it?
Every day, because it's an agreement.
Okay.
There's a contract agreement. There's a difference. People need to define. There's a difference between mutual aid and automatic. Now,
right.
Now Altadena would have had that fire, then automatic. We would have automatic agreement with them. They would automatically dispatch the closest apparatus to that call. You see what I'm saying? So that's the difference, and that's where I think that we need to make these changes. And honestly, I think this fire chief did wrong. They need to change their ways of doing things. And because if they don't, we can continue. It's going to happen again. It's going to happen again because we don't have the proper resource. San Marino doesn't have the proper.
The best things that the residents of our town could do of Altadena can do is be at the board meetings, right? And say to the board, look, we didn't have, if the reports come out, we didn't have the automatic aid agreement. We need that. We didn't have A, B, C, D. We need that. That's the only way at this point we're going to make them accountable, is by changing it for the future. Because I don't think in hindsight or finding out, oh, they did this, they didn't do that, we can assume that there was no call made to Edison to shut the power off, but we won't know yet until we see the logs and all of that, right?
Right.
And so I think moving forward, getting information like this, and you being a resident of Altadena now for 25 years, it would be important for someone like you that does have fire experience to say, hey, community, this is the things we need to look at. We need to make sure their SOPs are correct, that we have this in this agreement's in place. We need to make sure that we find out about the grid and how this water is being pumped, and if the infrastructure is what it should be. Because my understanding is Los Flores, and I think Rubio, I'm not sure if Lincoln too, but the infrastructure was old and the pumps didn't have enough PSI, enough pressure. I don't know for a fact. That's what I've heard, but when we get those reports. But one thing I want to do, Kev, before we go further on that, I know I have to drop at about 11:15, but that doesn't mean you have to drop, because the guys will be on here. There are some questions that have come up that I wanted to, one from Marcus Betts. He said, Kevin, what is your opinion of the water supply? Do you think that there's enough of a supply to fight a major fire? Is that something that needs attention as well? And we kind of just talked about that, I guess. So maybe you answered that as he was typing it.
Yeah, it's all calculated. It's all calculated, how much the water and how many hydrants they need, and it's in your building codes. So
Okay.
it's all calculated. But
do they assume that the whole town is going to be on fire? That's
No.
my question.
well, it's designed. You know, they don't assume the whole fire, but it's designed to prevent it from being a whole fire.
Whole town.
So that's what I'm saying. And they just let it go. And the overlaps till they wasn't fixing the system, and now we got caught. You know,
Yeah.
and this is what we have today. But this water system, the hydro system is what it is, and if you can request for it to be, get more pressure, you know, in the hydrants, you know what I mean? And every fire engine carries 500 gallons of water. You can't put out a house fire with 500 gallons. Something's wrong,
right?
Huh?
You said that's enough for one 2-story house?
Well, yeah, it is. It is. It's 500 gallons to put out. If you can't put out a house fire with 500 gallons, you know, when it's for initial assessments, something's wrong, you know. And you have different companies coming in to help relay that water or help to service that, you know, to provide that service. But we didn't have the adequate apparatus up there at those first 2 days. That third day, we had everybody in from all the way from Washington coming.
From Oregon and Washington, you're right.
A little too late.
Yeah, and that's the problem. And that's why this fire did what it did, because we didn't have the resource up to the first 2 days.
Yeah, I think that it was still perfect storm, and none of us ever thought this. Like I said, I'm an Altadenian 59 years now, right? Brian been there since the 80s. Jamal been there since 70s or 80s or whatever. So the fact is, like, none of us have ever left and thought we weren't coming back. If we had a fire, I mean, I grew up looking at fires in the mountains, right? I live around the corner from Rubio Canyon. So it's, you know, that was an Altadena normal thing. Exactly. It was an Altadena thing. Nobody ever thought like people would evacuate and never come back and our whole town would be gone. Or I'll say not whole town. 90% of our town is gone, right? Or 95. But our whole town is gone. And so I think that there's a lot of, I don't even want to say place blame, but yes, a lot of accountability needs to happen. I think people need to know the truth. The reports need to come out, whether people sue or not, or whatever happens is going to happen. But as we rebuild not only the homes, the infrastructure, the SOPs, all the laws, the rules, regulations surrounding what a town will need to be sustainable in the future, all of that has to be looked at. So I'm super glad you came on, because again, you are great with your knowledge, your experience as a firefighter, and talking about SOPs. And I had no idea about mutual aid, automatic aid, till we talked on the phone a couple of weeks ago. But these are the things that everybody needs to know and understand and look at. One other question: do we have any idea when the fire department's report will be provided?
Well, so the case management conference is going to be held June 30th, meaning that all agencies representing parties from Edison is going to be held. So Edison, so that means your fire, anything that was involved from your fire, your telecommunication to your gas and water and everybody, they're all going to be there, and they all have their reports.
Their perspective.
And so I'm curious when the fire department is going to come out with their fact finding, and that's the day that everything's got to be submitted to the judge, or vice versa. Because then now, it once all that is, then everybody can have a better idea of what's really happened and what happened. You know what I mean? Because we don't really know exactly everything that's going on, because we're all on one side. But what if Edison does? They say, hey, look, they throw it out of this case out because of their fact findings. So this did not start here. This do this and that. What if that does happen?
Yeah, I mean, it could.
It could.
Hopefully not.
We hope it don't. But at the same time, the fire department, we still got to make them, because you didn't stop the fire. Water department, you didn't give us adequate water department. You're telling the people to leave their community so you can do your job. You didn't do your job. If you let people stay and perfect their homes probably would have still been standing. You know what I mean? There's so many things that we have to make them accountable for. The only way you can make them accountable for is this Q&A. We need them to know what's going on. And that litigation procedure they got going on right now is just pointing the finger at Edison, But Edison started. What if a kid would have started the fire? We're going to point it, but you still now, who's going to build our city? It shouldn't have went this far. The mind probably would have been more clear, saying, okay, that somebody should have put this fire out. You know what I mean?
Right.
Somebody should have provided a proper service so they can do their job. So it's I just think, and I know I'm old school, but I know a lot of firefighters think like me. A lot of people who's been in my service, knowing that LA County messed up. They didn't do their job. We all know it. And a lot of fire, they did not stop this fire, man. This fire went from
I don't think it could have been stopped. I don't think it could have been stopped. I think that it might have been able to be mitigated a little bit. I think it was a perfect storm. I don't think it could have been stopped.
No,
I disagree with you.
That's
fine. Okay, right?
That's fine, because the thing is, they allow it to get this big. Like I was telling you guys, the way that this fire, it didn't. If brush started fire, it caught a couple of houses on fire. And if you don't put one of those houses on, you got a windy, it's going to catch another house on fire, and it continues. And then this is how you have this storm. That's why everybody's asking, well, why this house didn't burn down? Why this didn't burn down? Because this
that
wind
was the way the embers traveled.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, so you didn't have the proper resource up there to stop this. And most people who was up there, who stopped their fire, they was up there to stop the fire with the garden hose or bucket of water. Now, if you don't let people stay up there and to protect their home, that could have been done. And, I just had an interaction with the cops, and they forced me to leave. And so I left. But if I would have stayed up there, if I had a fire on my roof, that fire wouldn't have burned my house down. It wouldn't have burned my house down. So there's so many different things that needs to be addressed here. And if we don't address them to the right resource, we're going to lose out in the long run. And it's going to take more than 10 years to fix this community. If you don't get it, if you don't make this government accountable right now, you have to show that they're at fault first. They're at fault. And once we make them at fault, then they know they have to be accountable. This fire chief should not be here right now. I'm sorry. He shouldn't be here, because he knows that at the end of the day, he did not protect our community. He did not protect our people. We lost lives this day for a simple thing.
I hear you.
The proper resource wasn't here at the time. And I'm just saying, if we would have had automatic aid with our surroundings community, we would have had a better aggressive attack on this fire.
And Kevin, I have to trust that you have a great deal more experience from the firefighter standpoint, and yet I still understand Tony's point of view. And it goes back to something I had mentioned before. Nobody was prepared for this. Yeah. Right. As a firefighter, you may say that, hey, we could have, mitigated it and figured out a way to stop it from spreading. I mean, I'll have to trust your opinion on that. It just didn't seem like there was much that could be done given all the things that were going on. And when we see those reports, and hearing it from you makes it a lot of sense. There is a level of responsibility that should be on the fire department in preparedness, and at the same time, moving forward, hindsight's going to be 2020. So anything they prepare for from this point forward is going to assume that what just happened could happen. I truly don't believe that anybody expected or believed that could happen, even though they know it's possible.
Let me say this too, and piggyback on that a little bit. And I've said this before. I think I talked about it last week, maybe the week before. We also have to remind ourselves there is a such thing as self-accountability. People cannot expect the government and the fire departments to do everything for them. I'm not talking about putting out a fire, but I'm talking about clearing brush from their property, making sure on their own that they take care of their house, that they don't have a hoarder's house with all kind of combustible things that are all in the backyard and around it, right? Because so many people want to blame, oh, the government didn't do this. Where is your self-accountability? As a homeowner, it's my responsibility that if my pipe breaks like I had last week, I got to get that fixed. I can't blame the government if they don't do it. If I have things that are flammable or combustible or whatever on my property close to my house and something happens, that's not on people who didn't come to clear it, like the firefighters, right? Yeah, so that's where I believe also, yes, we have to do the things that you're saying, Kevin. There is no doubt, because we have to mitigate, right, for the future. But people have to become accountable. People now are saying the county needs to pay, or the state needs to pay for me to rebuild my house. Well, where's your insurance? And yes, there's people that have some insurance that is no insurance or underinsured. But even with underinsured, I give this example. When I got solar panels on my roof a year and a half ago, it was my responsibility to call my insurance company and say, please add these, and then pay the extra. There are people that have done upgrades and have done nothing to their insurance, but then they expect other people to pay for something, some damage that they've had. Mm-hmm. And so we have to and cannot forget, people and homeowners have to be accountable at a certain place and a certain level as well. So I do believe, and I'm not blaming anybody, any homeowners for this happening, but I do believe that the perfect storm, meaning the wind was what it was, right? The weather, our dryness, the Edison Tower arcing, sparking the fire, whatever. The county maybe not doing what they were supposed to do. And I acknowledge that from what you have said. The Edison not shutting it off, gas company not shutting it off, the water pressure not being high enough, because potentially those 3 private water companies infrastructure isn't up to date and they couldn't push it up higher. There's so much that is like, oh, this happened, and we may not be able to go and change any of it. We cannot, but we have to make those changes and have these discussions in the community going forward for the community for the future.
Right. I agree. Comprehensive acknowledgement of responsibility. Right. Both from the individuals and the resources, the services. Sorry, Kevin, go ahead.
I just want you to understand this. All I'm just saying is to make it simple for everybody, when you have when the fire department comes out with their investigation, their fact finding the cause of the fire, and if it is a community thing, you need to ask them, give me a GPS on every apparatus and every personnel that day, that time that fire started at 611. I guarantee you didn't have the right resource up there. I understand. And I guarantee you, now that's where he put those firefighters' life in jeopardy. This is why I'm saying the union association, where are you, Mr. President? You know you didn't have that right resource. So I guarantee. I guarantee
Kevin, if they have that information that shows that they didn't have the right resources, will there also be an explanation as to why?
Yeah, it will, but it won't be the right explanation. It's inadequate, because that type of fire, we have things to prepare. Just like I was saying, Sarah Madre, one fire company, and they're private, so everybody there is volunteer. They're a volunteer fire department, so they got to come from their house, get on the apparatus, and go there. But in the meantime, they have everybody in that same automatic cave rolling with them. So it is what it is. But I'm just saying, when you see Altadena, that GPS, every fire personnel that day has a GPS on him, his radio, and so that radio will tell you exactly where he was at that time. You want to, so that's right there is documented. You can't change that. So that's all I'm asking. Said, just give me that. Just give me a GPS on every apparatus, every personnel, that time from the day to the next day. I guarantee you, we're going to have the proper resources to fight that fire. And that's why this fire went this far.
Man, so you gave us so much different perspective.
It's a lot into it, and I'm not really hitting it really, but I'm just saying as community, you guys, it's coming where, you know, they're telling you to fix your home. Now you got to go to the street where that's where you're paying your tax dollars, they let you down. All it from your 911 system to your water system to you know, all that stuff you talking about, they let us down. They have to.
So I have a question, Kevin. Going forward, because I know there are plenty of community groups already, but if Altadena Talks, our foundation, has something where we say, okay, we're going to get this community group that can really help guide us in this direction, and I'll call you and say, Kev, I need you to come be on this committee when it comes to making sure the SOPs are right, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Are you going to be like, I got you, Tony? Or are you going to be like, nah, I'm not going to do that?
No, no, this is my community too, Tony. Because
that's what I'm saying. Because we have you on here today. You are way more knowledgeable about any of this stuff than any of us. And I think that it would be beneficial to have you on something like that as we go forward. We don't know when it's going to be, but that was a hypothetical. One question, because I do have to jump in about 3 minutes. One question I want to address was from Marcus. And it says, I've heard several times different people stating that they were not going to let JPL burn. Whatever strategy is used for that, it needs to be common knowledge. So just let me say this to you again, Marcus. I know I've addressed this here before. JPL is federal. It's the government. It don't have nothing to do with the county, the city, the state, none of that. And they have their own private fire department because JPL has all the stuff for NASA and all of that. And the federal government funds that fire department. And just like Mount Wilson is never going to burn because they're going to make sure that's protected no matter what, JPL is such an important national resource that it has its own fire department and they are not going to let JPL burn. But Kev, if you want to speak on that too, you can. But I know that for a fact because I used to work there.
Yeah, well, yeah, JPL do have their own fire department within that little community, but they still fall under the guidelines of LA County, you know, because they are in LA County, but the resource is there. But I don't think they didn't get that far, you know. And JPL is just it's never burned. We burned behind it, it burned, you know, in front of it, but it's never burned. And it is federal, but like I said, there's automatic or mutual aids that they have agreements within the local governments. And so I don't know how that's set up, but I know they have the fire department is not as big. It's not a big fire department. I know that.
Right. And they can't come outside of JPL to fight other fires. I know that for a fact.
Right. Because you do have federal fire departments, you have state, you have county, and you have your locals, and you have private, and they're a private fire department. So, you know, and you have volunteer fire departments. So it depends, but they're private. So, you know, they will never come out because they have to protect. Nobody will never request their service anyway, because they're private. And,
but I've heard a lot of people say,
they
didn't let JPL burn. That fire department should have came out to Altadena and help. I was like, they couldn't.
I was just trying to make you guys understand how your resource is structured when it comes to providing service for your city. You're not getting, you know, you're getting, it's a county, so you're getting any city that provides service, any city that the LA County Fire Department provides service for, they're not next door to you. The only one is La Cañada, but you got Duarte, Almani, all this. That's where your resource is coming from. And you're talking about a perfect storm fire. That is not adequate enough for that perfect storm fire in Altadena. That resource was too delayed. You know, if you would have had the automatic aid, that perfect storm would have been attacked in more of an aggressive way. You follow what I'm saying? You've had these surrounding cities next door to you rolling in versus waiting for one coming from Illinois. And then you got to wait. You don't know if they all got to go to a staging area to meet up with each other. So they can't come in as a strike team. We call it a strike team, which is 5 engine companies. So they can come in, you know. So, and then you have forestry, which handles forestry, or you have Cal Fire, which handles forestry. Now when you have structure, you got the local one. So I can break it down where it really is. I just need to see this incident report and then the investigation that's going on. and see really what happened, because I guarantee that, I just want you folks to, I guarantee you, if you do a GPS on every personnel, LA County, and that was there, it's inadequate. That day
is that part of a normal report?
It's out of it. Well, because it's what it is. It's a life-saving feature. So if a firefighter goes down and you can't,
no, I get that part, but you're saying, hey, if we ask for it, we can.
It's there.
We'll be able to see it. But is it going to be part of their report that they're going to provide?
Yeah.
They won't. Now they won't. Like, so, one thing about county, any local government, they won't provide the things that you
just on their own.
Just on their own.
Okay.
You got to do an FIOA, Freedom of Information.
But it will establish time. It will a time management where all companies that was dispatched to that call.
Oh, I get the justification for it. I want to know how to get it.
It will. So when you get the dispatch report, when they dispatch, when they got the calls coming in, how it's going to pretty much tell you how this incident went down. Then you can see what happened. And then you can say, well, look, we didn't have that. We didn't have the right resource. I know it.
So the dispatch report is going to be part of this stuff they provide on the 30th.
That's because they're the one.
Automatic.
They're the one that document everything. The 911 calls.
We don't have to ask special for that one, though.
You don't have to.
Okay.
You know what? Normally, you can call the county and get that report.
Yeah, but under these circumstances,
this has been I don't know if it's available for this one, because I haven't tried yet. But I know from pre-fire. I know a lot. I have a lot of recent stuff. I know from pre-fire planning, meaning that stuff that they tell us to do and what they do. Yeah. So during the fire and the post-fire, it is bad. It's bad for us. It really is. Okay. It really is bad for us. And we need to make them accountable, because in the future, we're going to. If this is how the model of the county. They feel that this too will pass. But how it's going to pass? If we don't say nothing, this too will pass, and that's how they look at it. And that's what people need to understand. So you see Palisades people, they're fighting. They ain't paying for their plans. They're getting their stuff done and all this and that, because it will pass, but it's going to pass on our terms. I'm asking people to make it on our terms, not theirs.
And because I think there's going to be enough Altadenians that are going to make it on their terms. We just don't get the airplay that Palisades does. So I don't think the masses are seeing the fact that the behind the scenes people are understanding what we can fight for at this point and the things we need to ask for. So I truly believe, and especially with podcasts such as ours, with the information you're providing us, because again, you're giving us insight that, for me personally, I had no concept of. I didn't know about all that responsibility and all that kind of stuff that was going on behind the scenes. I think we have a perspective now that we can utilize to move forward and make sure that we have Altadena rebuilt on our own terms, or for those who are actually there and who ultimately may actually be able to purchase there at this point. So I think I love your insight. I appreciate you coming on. I'm not trying to end the interview, but I'm just giving you, basically letting you know, thank you for giving your intel.
I was just thinking, it's just, it's something that is important that people, they need to know how their fire department really is structured.
Yes.
Because we, man, 99%, I work for the 911 system, and that's what all we do is deal with those calls. Ain't nothing good coming out of that phone call. Right. And so our job is to protect and to serve and to solve that problem. And 99.8% of the time we solve that problem. But sometimes it just goes the other way. It is what it is. And this right here, we cannot let the fire department or the local government just get away with this, because it shouldn't have went this far.
Hey guys, I got to drop. Kev, thanks for coming on. Yeah. Don't leave, because I'm leaving. I have a call in like 1 minute. Please continue the discussion. Thank you so much for coming on. I know we're going to have you come back on maybe next month or something, after the 30th happens, after the report's out, after we've had a chance to analyze it, so we can get some more facts and actual data. But have a good day, everybody. You guys keep on with the conversation, okay?
Take care, Tony.
All right, take definitely. Care. Bye.
Bye-bye. So it's kind of on you, Kev. If you have the time, you want to stick around a little bit more?
No, I didn't expect to take charge of this, but I'm just really. I really think,
no, that was the purpose of you being on.
Look, I really think it's important that people, because we're still in that first phase. We're still traumatized as a community, and
come on, man, this is unprecedented.
It really is. It really
for
is.
Our area.
It is, and it really is. And we have to look at it where, okay, they're telling us to take care of our properties, and that. But now you get to the street, who's taking care of that? Who's taking care of our community? You know, and then so it falls back on us, and so we have to take care of it. But every person's individual in Altadena, and when we're looking at it is what it is. But I think our foundation is to start from our local government. And why did this happen? We know, and now,
sure,
who could have stopped it? Now, so there have to be there's have to be fault. This is wrong, so it has to be fault, and it has to be directed to them because, they didn't provide us the proper service, and so we have to address that more than what we have to rebuild. Because they're the one that's making the laws and the rules. Gavin Newsom set the laws for the whole California. New construction, you got to put sprinkler systems in your homes, or solar panels. Well, if we didn't have the proper water support now before, so now you're telling me that you're gonna make us do this, but are you gonna sit there telling me that my water domestic companies that they gotta upgrade their systems? Now we have to pay for that as well. We lost it. It ain't like one house in the community is rebuilding, and they have to do it. You got the whole community doing it.
Whole town. Yes.
Your tax is about to change, and things that I was saying earlier, like Cal Fire, they're dropping these laws on us, where they're making our whole more than half our community. The fire extreme now. The zones that they have us is now it's more extreme than what it was. So now that gives the insurance companies, okay, 2 years from now, because Gavin said you cannot drop people from insurance. But after that 2 years, I don't have to provide service for you because you're in too much of a hazard zone. And this is the thing that we have every right to appeal that. It's been past 60 days. So I don't know if anybody appealed that, but that's what's going to happen.
I don't know that people knew that they could appeal it. So here's the thing, in my opinion. Everybody in Altadena, obviously Palisades, but in any other city is burnt down, but in particular because we're focusing on Altadena, because of this fire, they're dumped into learning about basic civics, learning how the different services operate, how they're connected to you, and when it comes to these laws and these things that are changing for building codes and with Cal fires and all that stuff, they're now affected by it really personally, and now have to pay attention more so than they ever did in the past. I've heard of Cal Fire before. And granted, I personally didn't lose any homes, but 9 members of my family and countless other people that I know and love lost their homes. So I know they weren't really paying attention to what happened specifically just for Cal Fire. So that point that you brought up, everybody's now aware. They're now going to be able to know, I know I can appeal this. Now, all this stuff that they're being exposed to now, they're going to be so educated and will be able to pass the knowledge on, but nobody was prepared for this. I don't care. And again, I know you're knowledgeable and you were a fireman, and I believe what you say. I just think it would be hard given what was happening in Palisades. I don't know where the resources were going, but with all that wind and all that craziness is kind of bananas. So I think everybody's going to be prepared and more knowledgeable now about the different aspects of the inner workings of the city and the government and how they're affected by it now. Right. Yeah. Because go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, because I think so Cal Fire is our state fire department. And many years ago it was forestry, but still, I think Cal Fire is setting these standards for the whole state. And when it comes to certain things, and they didn't send a team. I wouldn't even say they send a team, but when we have big fires like this, incidents like this, they send a team, incident command team. They can come from Vegas, they come from all over the country to run this fire. They didn't come to 2 days later. But we still had a unified command system set up. But sometimes what happens within that command system, somebody want to have a bit bigger chest. It's like, this is in my area. We're gonna do it this way or versus this way. And that I don't know if that happened with this fire the first day, but I do know that Pasadena Fire Station 36, which is on a lake in Fair Oaks, this is bad. They were the first company on scene, way over in Eaton Canyon. So they rolling.
And there's a station on Altadena Drive, right?
There's a station on Altadena Drive. There's one on New York, off of New York Drive, 66 is right there. So they might have, they're right there. And then you got,
but you don't know where they were at the actual moment.
At the time. But when you hear a fire started on a windy, on that day, it's very windy and power lines going down. Oh, it's on. They should
have been on alert, knowing that something could have been popping.
Right, and so they might have been on a fire, or might have been on, even if there was on a medical call. If you have your paramedics there, they will leave that call to go put this fire because they know this is about to go down. It has the ability to do what it did.
Yes.
And so this is what I'm saying. So, and that's what I'm saying. In-house fire service. I'm just curious what was going on at that time. Who was the first county fire company that was called on scene? Because I don't know if it was 11s or 12s, they should have been on their way before 36. So that's what I'm saying. When the incident report comes out, it's going to flow. It's going to give you a flow chart. It's going to give you a map of how they addressed this incident.
So I'm curious. Will you be available to come on after the incident report comes out and all that stuff comes out on the 30th?
Of course,
we can kind of chop it up and be like, hey, this is what this means and what have you. I mean, obviously it's going to be a long report and there's going to be a lot of information, but maybe we can pull out some highlights to say, hey, look, this is really important for you guys to see, for you to know about, and this is what this means relative to what actually happened in terms of response times and what have you. Would you be available for that?
Yeah, I will, because I think it's time for LA County to change their way of doing business in the fire service. Because it's not adequate for no community, especially Altadena.
Okay.
It's not adequate for any other. It's time for them to change the way they do things, because I think sometimes these bigger departments are thinking they're better than everybody. I can't say nothing about LA City, because I always felt LA City is one of the best fire departments in the world because they are aggressive. But when I look at LA County, I think the way that they do things, the way their standards, this is a safety first, which is good. But there's other ways you can have safety first, but then give better service that you give our community.
Okay.
From not just from fire calls, from our EMS perspective as well. I mean, emergency medical system as well. I think we deserve better service than what they've been providing for us. We pay for it. We pay for it. So we have to make them accountable in that way, where they have to give us let's change the service, because it's not working. And now, just to give you guys insight of the fire service, it's changing because of new personnel, experience, and many different things. And so it's governed different than it was, because experience was there. Now it's all gone, and so it's the belief of where you value your community and taking care of people is sorry about that. It's a different stage, because
so
that's when you go ahead.
I'm just curious about when you're saying, the people are the power, the people in power are moving, or people are changing because people are retiring and the new folks are in there. Hopefully the people that are actually running the departments, the battalion chiefs and the people who really make those calls, are still ones with a significant amount of experience. Or are you saying that most of them are going, and the people who are filling those roles are, maybe have a lot less?
Man, I'm talking from the top all the way down. Experience, because it depends how there is a process in the fire service how you get the experience.
Sure.
I'm a host, man. I love being. I can promote up if I wanted to, but I always I get in there and do the job because it was important, And then versus where a guy who's never been on a fire engine, but he was on the squads or RA. Then he promotes up, but he doesn't have that fire experience.
Copy that. I get you now.
But he's still promoted up. Now he's running the whole thing.
I understand what you're saying.
There's ways of doing things within the fire service, but when you look at this, but at the same time, it's tradition. This era doesn't believe in tradition. They believe in, hey, you're old, get out. Instead of looking at what the old guys do,
what they can offer. Now they're gone now, but you're still dealing with this. It doesn't change. 911 system doesn't change. People's problems doesn't change because you're new in the game. You still got to resolve. But
you need to talk to people who've been dealing with it. You know what I mean? So that's the service. That's
Marcus makes a good point. It's kind of like street smart versus book smart.
Exactly, and that's exactly what it is. So, and that's just that's in-house fire. But as far as the service we provide for the community, I just think the LA County let us down. They really did.
I hear you.
And we have to make them accountable. Where not to just point finger at them, but hey, look, if you can continue to let this management continue to do it this way, we're gonna have the same thing. So it's time to change this management to make it better and change your policies to make it better for these guys. Because like I said, I know in Altadena we get a lot of new kids on the block just getting out of the fire academy, and then they have positions that they have overtime. They have overtime. These guys just come work overtime. They're just coming in here passing through. We're not getting the service we provide. We're a real good firefighter. He knows his community. He knows his people in his community. He knows the city. He knows what he's dealing with.
Yeah,
that's the service that we should be accustomed to. Not somebody just coming in, working, and going home.
I can only hope that moving forward, just like you're saying, we can have them change those policies because we know that this actually can happen now.
Right.
I'm still going to go back to nobody expected this. Nobody in their lifetime has experienced this, but moving forward, I think we can actually do things in a much better fashion. In particular, like you're saying, if somebody's working OT, have somebody working OT that's familiar with the area. That way, if something pops off, they can actually, respond accordingly, quickly, and because they're familiar and can do things right. Right.
And you're right. So it's something. It's time that we as a community, and I haven't even been to a community meeting yet. They haven't even formed one really. Where we had Zoom, we do the podcast, but where we in person, where people need to be in person to be heard, because what they're doing, they're controlling your narrative. They're controlling it by not coming out. They're not talking to you guys. They're not saying you don't have the fire department, you don't have the fire chief, the police department, the sheriffs. You don't have water. You don't have nobody coming out talking to us, hearing us out. What the changes we want, You have to protest them. They need to come out.
We got to know what can and needs to be changed before we can even tell them. And what you're doing, what you're providing, is good insight in terms of the direction we need to go with that. And it sounds like we need to have some folks from the water department, the police department, sheriff's department, rather, and anyone else that was involved in that process. Because again, this is very insightful to me. I didn't know a lot of stuff that you're talking about. So I have a feeling that moving forward, we're going to be getting some of those town halls or some live meetings, if not directly by us, then from people who have watched this particular episode and gain some insight and want to move forward about making the changes that are necessary to improve Altadena moving forward.
Right. Yeah. Because I already requested a meeting with one of the council people that represent our city, and I think she's going to look into it. But at the same time, we need to have more of those where we can get together and let our voices be heard as far as stuff that needs to be done, because we're rebuilding. We have to rebuild this. We have to rebuild this into the South. And I'm more focused because I am angry with the fire department, because I've done that job, and I know that they let us down. They let the whole community burn. Mm-hmm. And people it was a perfect storm, because they allow it to be a perfect storm. You could have prevented. You see what I'm saying? It was a perfect storm. The wind was driving north, south, east, and west. It was going all over. It went to Sierra Madre area. They didn't lose their whole community.
Right.
They went down past it. They didn't lose their whole community. They didn't allow that to happen. The resource was there. So that's what I'm saying. We allow it to happen. We went from Eaton County all the way to Lincoln. So we have to fix that, man.
Got you. So what's your time like, man? I know you didn't expect to be on this long.
I didn't expect to be on that long. I thought it was maybe an hour or so, and I've been on there for an hour.
Hour and 34 minutes, man.
And I appreciate you guys, but I'm just saying I didn't give really the true break it down as far as how it really works, but I gave you the basic common sense of just a citizen in the community, what they should know about their fire department and the little things that that they should start addressing. Because
I appreciate you like enlightening us, kind of giving us a little bit, knowing that there's a lot more. I particularly think that this is the right time for this conversation to start, because obviously when this first happened, nobody was ready for this conversation because they were devastated in terms of losing their home, not really trying to navigate what the next steps are. Not that they're not trying to figure out the next steps now, but I think they're a little bit more like emotionally prepared to start seeing, hey, what actually happened? Who's actually responsible? How can we make sure that this doesn't happen again as we're in the process of rebuilding, right? So I think this is a phenomenal conversation, initial conversation, and I hope we can have many more as necessary moving forward, because I think this was fabulous. And as you can see, the folks who are tuning in appreciated it as well.
Thank you. And another thing, real quick, just give you, so you look at Mayor Bass over there, she made her government accountable. And so this, and they're not blaming somebody for this, but they're not blaming Anderson. It's coming from the mayor. She's making the fire department, she's making water, she's firing all these people, she's making them accountable. Where is our government? Why they're not, you see, so it was a fault there. They're basically saying it shouldn't have went this far.
Gotcha.
Ms. Bass is doing her thing. It shouldn't have went that far. So the fire department, I hired you to do this job. Water, I hired you to do this job. Well,
the only people we can lean on are the supervisors at this point, because Karen isn't over us.
So think about it that way, man. And it's important, because if we don't, we are not going to be rebuilt the way we want to be.
Well, here's the unique thing. I know Brian had gone to an event this past weekend and had communication or a talk with Supervisor Catherine Barger. I apologize, however it's supposed to be said. And he asked if she was willing to come on the show. So she said, yeah. So we just have to schedule that. And please believe this is going to be part of the conversation that we have with her, because this, like I said, is the right time. I don't think anybody was thinking about it, this whole disaster from this vantage point up until now. And moving forward, I think we're going to keep that narrative going along with the rebuilding and all the other stuff that's happening. So thank you for that. Like you said, Karen Bass is doing what she can for the city, but now for the county, we got to lean on the supervisors in a different way than we have been before. Yeah, because she's catching it before people can lean on her really bad, She's knocking it down. So, and that's what our city supervisor. This being her last term, I think she's going to try to get a lot done.
Exactly.
As she goes out.
All right. So thanks for having me on, you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you, man.
All right.
Man, you have a fabulous day, bro.
And same to you guys. All right.
All right. Thank you. Peace out. Oh, man. Brian, you didn't really say much, man. That's a trip. That conversation just flowed, man.
There was no need for me to talk. I was behind the scenes sharing.
Yeah.
No, but seriously, I just wanted to make sure that
change your mic. It's got that little craziness going on with it. Yeah, I still hear it. It's like static or something.
Probably the fan.
Oh, yeah, that might be it. I don't want you to melt over there, though. A little bit.
Let me see about leaving.
Nah, I still hear it. It's like you're talking in front of a fan. Marcus said, kind of like Charlie Brown's teacher. He actually went out and is coming back. Oh, okay. So, yeah, Brian's coming back on now. Let's see what happens. It still sounds weird. I don't know. It's kind of bizarre. Yeah, I don't want you to have heat stroke, but it definitely sounds like you're talking behind the fan or in front of a fan. Still, sound like you're on a walkie-talkie now.
Maybe it's good that I didn't speak.
No, again, I think it was a great conversation. Like you said, you were behind the scenes doing that stuff and listening. I didn't know. Like I said, that perspective is really good. And it's an initial conversation that we'll have. Hopefully everybody who tuned in and will actually watch this later actually get some goodness from it. I think this is actually going to be cool. Thanks, Marcus. Appreciate you believing it was a great show. And you know what? It's been an hour and change, so we're not going to do the announcements today. We'll go ahead and pop on tomorrow right away in the beginning. And you want to go on out and wish everybody a great day. And thank you for tuning in.
Okay or no?
It still sounds crazy. It's weird. Because I tried to get rid of the echo canceling, and let's try it now. Say something now. Can't hear you now. That's weird. It is bizarre. Anyway, everybody, thank you for tuning in today. As we say peace. You gonna end it? Or you want me to do it?
I can end it if you can hear me.
Okay. I can hear you. It's just peace, y'all. Have a great day.